Welcome to Woodland Corpses Horror Podcast. I'm your host, McKenna, and I'm here today with author Kristi DeMeester. Welcome, Kristi.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thrilled to be here.
How's it going?
Pretty good, I know we were chatting earlier of it is unseasonably hot here in Georgia, which is, I mean, it's standard at this point. You'd think I'd learn to expect that in late November it's going to be 76 degrees and 70 something percent humidity, but every time I'm somehow surprised. So that's why we're in the tank top in the middle of
Yeah,
November.
yeah, no, we moved from Georgia
Oh,
earlier this year, and when we left January 31st, it was 81 degrees.
oh my
And
gosh.
then we got
Yeah.
here and it was like 10.
So you understand the pain. Where are you now?
Like way up north in Minnesota.
Okay. Oh, wow. So a big change.
It's
Like,
big difference. Yeah, I've got a
wow.
heater
Okay.
on under the desk, an extra, like, it's just freaking cold.
Yes. Yes.
Um, yeah, yeah. I love it though. There's things I miss about Georgia, like I miss the beach. But
Okay.
I
Yeah.
don't miss the bugs or the
The
heat.
bugs, no, the bugs, the heat and the humidity that seem to just always be here until February. And then it's like we have a month and a half of good cold and then it's
Yeah,
done. Yeah,
yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, we were there for 4 years and I was like, this is 4 years too long. Um, yeah, anyway, so Christy is the author of Such a Pretty Smile, Beneath, and your newest release, Dark Sisters, is publishing December 9th with
December
St.
9th.
Martin's Press. I'm
Yes.
excited. It was a top read of the year for me. Um,
Yeah.
I know that there's some others. I don't and I'm one of those people who's like, well, what have you been reading lately? So like, what have you been reading lately? And then we'll get back to Dark Sisters.
Sure, of course. Yes. So I have just, well, okay, I just finished Diabola by Jennifer Thorne, which I really enjoyed and really loved the kind of twisty, turny, really kind of demented places that that book went to. Because I think so frequently when you start to deal with like haunted house books and possessions, they go a very certain way and they don't
Yeah.
really ever get as nasty as I want them to. And I really loved that this one kind of got nasty. And so I always love when an author is brave enough to do things like that. And then the
Yeah.
book that I just started that I am so impressed by so far, and I'm so excited to keep reading is Model Home by River Solomon.
I've been hearing a lot of good
Phenomenal,
things. Yeah.
phenomenal writing so far. I'm talking like akin to the kind of literary like slipstream surrealist writing that like Helen Oyeyemi does, or like Carmen Maria Machado, or like that really beautiful kind of lyricism in the
Yeah.
prose, and yet it's also so starkly unsettling. I love when those two roads meet, and
Yeah.
so I think I'm only probably 20 something percent in, and I want to slow
Hooked.
down and speed up right at the
Yeah.
same time. Like I don't want it to be done, but also I need to know. So other than that, I'm working right now. I'm working on the a manuscript for my next book, and so that always slows my reading down strictly. I know, right? That always slows my reading down pretty significantly, simply
Yeah.
because my brain has to be somewhere else. And I fear when I'm working that I'm going to kind of absorb through osmosis the other person's writing style. And so I try to be very careful that I'm not doing that. But yeah, that's what I'm reading recently.
Nice. Yeah, I those are both two books on my TBR that are now going to get bumped up.
Right. That's how it always happens. You talk to someone and you're like, oh, yes, I have it.
Yeah.
And now it's coming. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, and my TBR is such a mess. I was just telling a friend, I'm like, I was gonna do this the ABC TBR challenge, and I was trying to do it through my physical books, and I'm like wandering around my library, laying them out, and I'm going, I have so many books to read. And it's
Yeah.
just like, it's a great thing to have that problem, but also not great because I'm like, I need more time in the day. It's just
Yes.
not there.
And it's not there. No, it can get overwhelming, especially with the physical copies, because I have a tendency to revert to my digital copies, my Kindle,
Mm,
just because that's easy. It's around, it's with me at all times.
yeah.
If I'm waiting, out somewhere, I always have it. And so I'll kind of just by automatically, I guess, just revert to that and then forget that I have all of these beautiful physical copies lying around.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I just did the same thing because I had a library book come in on my Kindle and I'm like, I have like a stack of books next to the couch and I'm like, but the library book came in.
Right. And I have to return that.
Yeah. I'm
So
like,
there's a time crunch.
time limit.
Yes. Uh-huh, uh-huh. Always a reason to add more.
Seriously, there is. So t tell me because Dark Sisters is just this like you were talking about the books that you're reading, dark, twisty, just demented, but with like this emotional center that it's just you go back to it and I can't get it out of my head. Tell me, like, what was your inspiration for the story and the premise of the three timelines?
Oh wow. Well, first of all, thank you so much. And then it was interesting the way that Dark Sisters evolved because it initially started as a completely different book. That they appeared in and I had the manuscript completed and they had served a very different function. But when I took it to my agent and we were talking with it or talking over it, she was like, "Listen, book's fine. There's fundamentally nothing wrong with it. It's just that the market is really saturated with these kinds of books right now. And so I just don't think now's the time for this sort of book,
Mm,
given just the way things have been lately." And she was right, because she's brilliant and wonderful. But I couldn't let go of the idea of the Dark Sisters as an entity
yeah.
and what they had started to represent at the end of that other book, which was this force for recognition, almost like a mirror that was being held up to the protagonists to say, this is what happens when a lack of acceptance or when you refuse to accept yourself. So I had that idea kind of marinating in the back of my mind. And then there were a number of things that just kind of lined up really well all at once. I was doing a lot of journaling at that time, going back in and looking at some memories of when I was a child and some of the things that I was had experienced growing up in a really strict fundamentalist church, and then coming out of that and jumping directly into kind of a Southern Baptist and a lot of really heavy purity culture things. And so I was revisiting just in journaling a lot of the stuff that had to do with that purity culture. And then Roe v. Wade was overturned. And I went, oh,
Yeah.
wow. Like there are a lot of things that are just seeming to slot into place
Yeah.
that are feeding my anger, that are feeding my really old feelings of guilt and shame that I'm trying to overcome. And so the story itself really started with the Dark Sisters. If I said, if they were already these mirrors and these representations of this is what can happen, how can I take that and embody some of these things that I've been dealing with or thinking about a lot lately? And then from there, Camilla's story started. And then everything really just kind of started to rotate around that in terms of the other two storylines. So it was really the sisters as the entity that kicked
Hmm.
everything off, and then just being really pissed about a bunch of other things that
Yeah,
were
I get that.
happening. Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. It comes through and like the purity culture and all the fundamentalist stuff is like I can relate. I tell people I grew up in a cult and it's weird because it's not like a Christian cult. It was like an Eastern religion. It was very I didn't know it was a cult until like last year.
Sure. I mean, that's, yeah,
But
absolutely.
that's how it happens. And
Yes.
so like the guilt and the shame and there's so much in the book that I can relate to. And then yeah, being pissed and like the rage that comes through. Um,
Yeah.
I, with current events in the world, um, I don't know how to put it. Like it's obviously like a good for her, which is like that's my favorite. I don't know, like king of my oh
Yeah,
like
love it. Oh, that's gorgeous. I love it
it's
so much.
it's like that's my favorite like kind of thing. Do you think that like that you're gonna are you writing more like quote unquote good for her or like what
You
direction are
know,
you going now?
yeah, it's interesting because as a writer, you want to constantly be evolving and growing and trying new things, but I find myself coming back to a lot of core themes quite frequently,
Yeah.
strictly because that's the itch that I can't scratch. And it often has a lot to do with anger, and it often has a lot to do with these things that I have been told my entire life. No, you're not
Mhm.
allowed to have that. You're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to do that. And there is this inner voice, sometimes inner child that has been screaming, but why? But why not?
Yeah.
And because there's no good reason. And so I think until that itch is scratched, and I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, right?
Huh.
Um, I can't help but think that that voice isn't going to go away. It will bend and change. I know
Yeah.
even for instance, in the book that I'm working on now, that anger is still very much present. It's changed a bit, but it's still very based in looking at discrepancy in treatment and discrepancy in opportunity. And
Mhm.
I think that that's just something that is so deeply resonant with me that I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to really get away from it. And I think that that's what horror does so beautifully is horror is the genre of monsters. And that we can really play with symbolism and allegory and say, I think there's a lot of things in our waking lives, or and I'm not speaking for everyone, but we have this tendency to not want to look at it.
Mhm.
Of the true atrocities, yes, of course, people get up in arms and people get very angry, and rightfully so. But then there are these very small, kind of insular hurts that I think go more unnoticed.
Oh yeah.
And those add up to the big things. And we have a tendency to take those small things and just go, oh, well, it doesn't impact me. It's okay. And I think I sometimes get more angry about that because I go, you don't see how those things snowball. And so horror is a really great genre where we can say, let's take that and embody it in something more hyperbolized or physical or symbolic and go, okay, but do you see how it can become this?
Yeah.
Like it, do you see how these really small things can then become the monster?
Yeah.
And so I love to play in those spaces and now I'm rambling. I don't remember.
No, you're fine. You're
Oh my
fine. Hey, we're just talking. No,
Right. Yeah.
I love that because horror for me, obviously, it's such a vast genre that can just hold up a mirror to the fucking plight of
Mm,
society and
right.
say, hey, this is what's happening. Even if it's symbolic, some of it's just in your face. But I think Dark Sisters does that really well. Um, and like for me, like yeah, I'm queer. And Mary Mary Shepard, the mid-century timeline, her and Sharon were both my favorite and most angering part
Yeah.
of the book, I think.
Yeah.
And without giving any spoilers, like obviously we just talked about like, horror gives you a voice or a mirror or something like that. For that timeline in particular, like what would be like your inspiration, or was there anything in particular that was like, I need to write this character?
Right. Yeah. It's funny. Mary was originally not in the book at all.
Mm,
And her timeline was the last one added. And I had not really, yeah, it was, I guess, okay. It was after a conversation with my agent where she said, this is all coming together really well, but we think we need one more voice
hmm
to bring in just a little bit more of how this ripple effect really impacted the historical timeline. If you're looking at something that has foundations going all the way back to the 1700s and then how it builds all the way to the 2000s, or even really if you want to consider modern. And it's so crazy to me that now we call 2007 historical. But I mean, I get it. It was almost 20 years ago. I understand, but that really freaks my brain out.
Yeah,
But Mary's timeline weirdly became my favorite. And her story also is the same thing, right? Of her voice was my favorite to write, but also the most heartbreaking to write because I knew what was going to happen
yeah,
and I knew where it had to go. as awful as it was going to be. I knew that that was really going to probably be the only answer, especially for a woman like her in that time period. And so, in looking at the time periods and thinking about, okay, what are the time periods where we really are, it's kind of culturally in the zeitgeist that we know, like women's subjugation. It's like, okay, let's see, the witch trial period, the burning times, right?
Yeah.
The 50s of that time period of the really traditional housewife, of those extreme limitations and, mommy's little helpers to get you through the day, which are, I mean, you're just taking a Quaalude and all,
Yeah.
all of that. And so that was the time period too. And I read as research before writing a number of like nonfiction texts based upon women's roles or what it was to be a housewife in the 50s. But then I also read like the feminine mystique and then like a criticism of the feminine mystique and this sudden burgeoning awareness that was happening to women in the late 50s going into the 60s where they all of a sudden had this collective unconscious awakening to say, well, I guess it wasn't unconscious, it was because people finally started talking about it,
Hmm.
of it's not me that's broken.
Yeah.
Everyone was walking around thinking that they were unhappy because there was something wrong with them. And that wasn't true. It was the system that was in place that was creating these parameters around which they couldn't exceed or they couldn't do anything different. And so, oh, it's not my fault.
Yeah.
And that was so disturbing to me. On so many levels, personally, and then just within social consciousness as well. This idea of you're unhappy and you can't even articulate why.
Yeah.
And so Mary's character really was the embodiment of that for me, of a woman who desperately longs for a life that she's told she can't have, but she's caught in this space where, so like, she loves her daughter. And I think it's to some extent, there's a part of her that longs to be happy with her husband because that's what she's been taught.
Yeah.
But there's that part of her that's not filled. And so in developing her character, she was the person who still had her foot in the traditionalism and felt as if she couldn't break out of it. Sharon was the other side of that,
Yeah.
of the one who had the awareness of, oh, this unhappiness comes from outside things, not within. And how can I push forward and how can I press on? And when those two things meet, how do they change each other or how do they impact one another? And so that was really her character's role in exploring that dynamic. Also, there was a lot of me in her in terms of like the young mother of
Hmm.
all of a sudden your life is turned upside down and I don't know what to do and I have all these things I'd rather be doing and I feel really guilty about it. And so she was my heavy guilt and shame character. And gosh, I hate you. Sometimes even talking about her, I'm like, I'm gonna cry because
Yeah, no, like her timeline ripped me apart, and I think what does that say about me that I most connect with that with her and that timeline and the
mm,
guilt and the shame, and I think it's like that the deconstruction of the religiosity and
hmm
what you've been told and patriarchal bullshit,
hmm
just and then it's funny because so many people are like, "Oh, well, our grandparents didn't get divorced." It's like, yeah, because grandma was just high all the time on
right. And
whatever the doctor
also
gave her.
right, and also not allowed to. That's the thing is I'm like, women weren't allowed to get credit cards in their own name until 1976.
Yep.
Like, what do you mean? Like,
And it's so bizarre because like obviously I'm going to date myself. I was born in 84,
hey, me too. Yay.
Yay! So it's like our mothers, my mom couldn't, she went into the Air Force in 78, I want to say. But it's like
hmm
to think about that is like my mom as a human being could not have a credit card. And it was
Right.
just
Yeah.
the system that was made to keep women and other, marginalized people just under
Right.
somebody's thumb. I think you really just like nailed that.
Oh, thank
And
you.
it was like I can't shut up about the book. I'm telling people, I'm like, will you go read this book when it comes out? Um, but um it was funny because like thinking of like, all of the stuff holding us down. It's like I always read the acknowledgments. And I highly encourage everyone listening to do the same for every book that you read because I love reading the acknowledgments. Your last line in your acknowledgments really kind of spoke to me. And what would you say to your teenage self if she read your book?
Oh, if she read the book.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. How long do we have? Um,
You got 10 minutes.
golly, right? Because there's so many things I would want to say. And I think more than anything, it is to trust yourself. Um, the things that you're thinking, they're not wrong.
Yeah.
No matter what someone tells you. The things that you're thinking, the things that you're feeling, they're not wrong. And it's okay. Like girl,
Yeah.
stand up, like listen to yourself and stand up. And I know that that's really hard to tell someone who hasn't had any life experience and expect them to actually internalize that and execute it. But I think it would have saved a lot of things on the back, a lot of heartache on the back end to just say, you can trust that you can trust yourself. And
Yeah.
I think that that's what like Camilla spends a lot of her time doing. She doesn't trust what she's feeling. She doesn't
Yeah.
trust what she's thinking because she's been told that it's not right. And I like that's the key to gaslighting, right? Is someone's told you your entire life you can't
Yeah.
trust yourself. Eventually you start to internalize that, you start to believe it, and they don't have to do anything anymore because now you're just operating under that set of parameters. So, and that was where I lived. And yeah, I think that would be it. Trust
Yeah.
yourself, stand up.
Yeah, no, I get that because like I'm 41, I'm still deconstructing. I'm still
Yeah.
deconstructing all kinds of shit.
Oh yeah.
Um, just between like the religious stuff because my grandma was like previously Catholic and then converted to this Eastern religion that ended up being a cult. And I was kind of like dragged along, because like, it was
Sure.
my single mom relied on my grandparents.
Right. Yeah.
And it's one of those things where you're just like, I look back and I'm like, man, if somebody had just told me there's not anything wrong with you,
Right.
like, like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
life,
okay,
life would be really different. Like,
different.
it's
Absolutely.
bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you a question now.
Yeah.
Um, so it's an interesting thing because you said you kind of grew up like you were a child during this period, or like child to teenager. Okay,
Yeah.
so children are savvy. Like children understand and they see things and they clock things. Like children are a lot more emotionally intelligent than I think we give them credit
Oh,
for.
yeah.
So when you were in it, was there a part of you that even if you believed it and you wanted to believe it very much, because I think we want to naturally want to please, and so when someone tells us something is correct, we naturally go along with that. But did you ever clock the hypocrisy and go, something doesn't seem right here?
I think it wasn't really until my teenage years
Mm-hmm.
because I ended up, I was homeschooled from third grade.
Oh wow, okay.
Until and it wasn't like the religious thing, it was more like I'm autistic and I was being bullied and they were like, nope, we're gonna pull
Yeah,
you out
this
of
is a better,
school,
yeah, sure.
which wasn't really any better because then I was like isolated. But I don't think it was really until high school when I started to be like around different people and experiencing other things going,
Mm-hmm.
this is weird, like I don't know about this, but it's still I was not it, I would say I've been deconstructing now probably for 15 years, I
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
since I met my
sure.
husband, just because it's like you might think something, and I tried to come out to my mother as bi when I was like 23, and it was, you're confused,
Right, right.
like you're
You'll grow out of
confused.
it.
That's
Yeah.
not, everybody thinks that way about girls. Everybody thinks girls are pretty. And I'm like, which is hilarious because then I had the conversation with my mother lately, and she's like, oh. Oh,
Like, what does
that
that mean
oh
about?
oh that makes sense. She said we've kind of reconciled that, but it's
Oh,
hilarious because
God.
it's like, well, what does that mean for you, Mom?
Right,
We need to have
right.
this conversation. Um, yeah, no, like I think kids are like super smart and they can figure that out. And I think the more people who get outside of the echo chamber, because I was in an echo chamber of like, even though my mom was like a more progressive person,
Mhm.
I was still in that echo chamber of
Right.
like conservative, my job as a woman is to uphold the household and please the man and make sure you
Mhm.
cook and look pretty and it's boy, I am not the same person now. Um because I was like always this person, but stuffed it down so
Right.
hard because I was told that everything that I was or was doing was wrong or what I was
Wrong.
feeling was wrong.
Right.
Um, yeah, it's just and I'm finding a lot of people in the book community, at least in like the like queer horror weird side of the book community, have
Hmm.
gone through a lot of that. They've gone through like the religious stuff and the
Right.
repression. Like, have you found that
It
among the
is,
community?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
so interesting to have kind of stumbled into, yeah, into a community that had these very similar experiences that I had, and we
Mhm.
all ended up here. And again, I think that goes back to the whole mentality of, like horror is a mirror. And I think that what happened with a lot of us is that our initial attraction to horror was because of rebellion
Yeah.
and the need to establish that sense of, well, I'm interested in this. I'm told I'm not allowed to be interested in this, but I'm going to do it anyway. And so there's that initial kind of gateway into it is through rebellion. And then very slowly you start to have this awareness of, oh,
Yeah.
there's some things happening kind of under the surface here and some commentary being made that really tracks with the things that I feel. And how interesting is that? And then with the beginning of social media, it just got even more pronounced. And so it is really interesting sometimes when I sit down with a group of horror readers, other horror writers, and all of a sudden we start to be like, oh, I had a very similar experience. Like, oh, we're family.
Yeah, it's like I love the little weirdo community that we
Yeah.
are. Like my friend she says, "Look, I'm just weird." And it was funny because her partner was trying to tell I'm sure she doesn't care that I said it, but her partner was like trying to tell somebody at their job um what kind of stuff that she likes to read and they didn't want to make her sound weird. And she goes, "But I am weird." So it's fine.
It's fine. Right.
I am weird.
Absolutely. And it's like when you tell someone that you've never met before initially, and especially like whether you're a reader or a writer, if well, what do you write? What do you read? Oh, I read horror, and then the immediate question, like Stephen King, and then I go, no,
No.
I mean like no shade, like he's
Yeah.
great, he's like good for him, but that's not the vibe. And then you start naming authors like never heard of them, and you're like, of course not,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I'm like, no,
yeah.
but you need to hear about them.
Right, you should know. You really should.
Yeah. No, same. And it's like, yeah, like no shade to Stephen King, but I'm like, he's not my vibe. I want there's a it's a song by I think it's Subtronics and it's called Itchy Scratchy. And he uses this line that says, I want the weird shit.
Yes,
Give me
yeah.
the weird shit.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you want.
Yeah.
If I want to walk away from it and feel like I had my brain like taken out and washed
Yeah.
in something, or like not maybe not washed isn't the right word, but like manipulated and then put
Yeah.
back in.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I tell people like if they want to get started reading horror, like you probably don't want to start with Ania Allborn, but
Probably not.
just uh, like right up there, you know.
Right. That's like
Um
giving someone Eric LaRocca first time around and then be like, enjoy.
yeah, yeah, congratulations, good luck with this.
Right.
Um that's funny. He's in my TBR, another one of his books. I think
Oh yeah.
Everything the Darkness Eats, I think is
Oh
what.
yes. Oh, that's a good one. It's a good one.
Um but yeah, no, like weird horror and I love that I love your style is part of my weird horror stuff. So I'm excited to see what you do next.
So, yeah, well, thank you. I'm really leaning into the weird for the next couple ones because that was my foundations of
Yeah.
that I came from technically weird fiction and kind of cosmic horror, and I love ambiguity and I love things that are just out there and strange. And then going into traditional publishing, you got to kind of swing it a little bit more mainstream to capture a wider audience, which I understand. But I am it's like now that I'm in, I'm like,
You're
okay,
good.
here we now I can play a little bit. So I'm really excited for these next few actually books that I have kind of one I'm working on and the other is simmering in the background. So super excited for those.
Do you have a timeline yet?
Well, the only timeline that I have is of right now is that my first draft is due in May. And I mean, I think anyone who's dealt with publishing before, it's notoriously it's just slow.
Yeah.
So I would not imagine it's going to be a 26 release. I'd imagine it's going to be 27. But I'm hoping that now that I kind of understand who I am as a writer, I can start going a little faster, just myself, because I was not a plotter. I've always been a pantser, and now that I'm doing novels, I'm like, oh, you actually have to know in order to keep all these things together. So I'm hoping that I go faster, which will make things move a little more quickly.
That's hilarious. I had not heard the term plotter or pantser until
Oh my God.
I think I talked to CJ. It was CJ Lead. I was
Yes.
actually down in Florida. I met her at the Links. It's not Jacksonville. Where the heck is it? It's further south than Jacksonville. Um,
I have no idea.
Wonderful, fantastic queer bookstore called The Links.
Mm-hmm.
It's very comforting and homey
That's fantastic.
and and I was talking to her about writing because I am attempting to write, but I've got a job now, so back burner.
Congratulations, first of all. That's a big deal, like taking
Thanks.
that leap and taking that step.
Um, it was funny because she was like, "Well, you're a plotter or a pantser," and I'm like, "I don't fucking know what I am."
Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. I just write stuff down. And I'm like, apparently that's pantser, but
That's Panther.
I realized that I need to be a plotter because the pantser isn't working for me.
Yeah, and I hate that feeling. I hated that moment of
Yeah.
realization because I love the sense of discovery that comes in with being a pantser, where you're like, I get to just uncover this like an
Yeah.
archaeologist, like I'm fucking Indiana Jones or something. But it doesn't, when you start to have, especially if you have more than one point of view or more than one
Hmm.
type, it just, oh my gosh, I have to understand how all these things are going to connect and intersect. And I just couldn't do it anymore. And so now I have notebooks and notebooks and notebooks and notebooks of notes and outlines and plot points. And I've actually recently converted to just doing everything longhand, which is
Hmm.
stupid, but for some reason works for my brain because my brain
Yeah.
works too fast. And so when I have to physically, it forces me to slow.
Yeah.
So yeah.
There's that whole connection with writing in your brain and memory
Yes.
too. Because like when I was in school, it if I typed it out, it was like, all right, that's fine. If I wrote it down, I remembered it.
Yeah.
But
Uh-huh.
yeah, my brain goes a mile a minute, so I can understand
It
that.
helps. It does
Yeah, I
help.
can
Yeah.
understand that. Like, yeah, but it's been an absolute honor having you on the show.
Well, thank you.
I hope we get to have you back for the new book.
I would love that.
Um,
Yeah.
because I'm excited. And we're just starting out. I'm a little show, but it's been fantastic.
Yes,
It's been
yes. Thank you so much
fantastic.
for having me. I always love to get to chat with people about the things that go into the books because sometimes that you don't get to talk about those things, so it's nice.
Yeah, and I love it, and I love hearing the stories behind it, and I love just meeting people because like you're a human being,
Yes.
like everybody else.
Everyone
People
thinking,
freak out about authors, and I'm like, but I like you get to talk to people, and you realize you have stuff in common, and you're like, this is a human being who wrote this book. Everybody,
yeah,
December 9th,
December
who wrote this
9th.
book. Um, but it's like you're a human being like us. You're not some like I don't know
No,
golden idol that
no,
that
not at
wrote this
all.
thing.
Not
But
remotely glamorous.
I no, I but I love it because it humanizes you and I think it adds more connection to the book to just get to know
Right.
people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what you want. That's the whole point of reading is to have that sense of connection. Yeah.
It has been awesome. Thank
Thank you. Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.